It could just be a coincidence, but everything is starting to seem more romantic in spring. I found lost letters from my great-grandparents about love, and I read other letters from poets about art. I'm taking photos for a couple that wants to retrace their first dates, and I even came across the movie ticket from my own. I've woken up with so much inspiration to draw and paint that I pulled out all of my favourite photos, and I'm realising how much of my art is tied to memory and sentimentality. I think it's because I'm really seeing art as a way of romanticising life. Hi, I'm Ling, and I'm turning my whole apartment into a home art studio. It's really starting to warm up in Sydney right now, so I picked up this beautiful bunch of spring flowers, and I have this vase from a homewares collection that I'm launching with my friend later this year. And I've just spent so much time recently creating here with the weather feeling like spring, and I've realized that it's kind of exactly what I envisioned for this space when I first moved in. I came home the other day from photographing a wedding, and Jace was waiting at the door to help unpack all of the camera gear. He'd also set up our new record player, so I came into the most beautiful sunset and had one of my favorite albums playing by Logue as well. And I just feel like this week I have so many nostalgic and sentimental projects coming up with photography. There's one family who wants me to capture some moments at home with their grandparents, and I have another photo shoot for a couple that wants to retrace their very first dates. I really loved that my whole job with photography this week is basically just to help people to romanticize these moments in life. And I feel like I've definitely been romanticizing my own life as well. I don't know if it's just because it's getting so much warmer, but I have been waking up with a huge feeling of motivation and inspiration. So I thought that I could share all of the projects that I have coming up. And I know I've had quite a few questions about the camera gear and settings that I've been using as well. So I can share everything as we go and how to hopefully create some really sentimental and nostalgic photos. I also want to spend a lot of time journaling, painting, and drawing this week as well. I can share all of the rituals that have made me really enjoy the creative process recently. And they've also helped to make the whole space feel really romantic. My ideal morning is super slow and meant for a creative mood. When I wake up, the first thing I see is actually The Kiss by Klimt because I have this print in the bedroom. I've been changing the feeling in my apartment to reflect the seasons, and now that it's spring in Australia, I'm filling it with flowers and going back to cooler iced teas. Every morning, I get to use this matcha bowl to remember the spring that we spent below Mount Fuji, seeing cherry blossoms. I think that using sentimental objects like this, which are also extremely beautiful handmade crafts, are some of the best ways to bring art into the day because it means that I'm looking at something creative right away. Looking at art could also be by looking at photos, paintings, books, or anything out in the world, the sky or sunlight, sitting still and taking everything in, or journaling it all out. The best thing is if what I consume first thing in the morning can make me either curious or reflective, but not overstimulated. I started reading a book this week called Letters to a Young Poet, and it's a real collection of letters that were written and sent by Roke. I've just started each day trying to read one poem at a time, and even though it's about poetry, I feel like so many things relate to all different kinds of art. There was one part in his first letter where he's writing back to someone who's sent him their poetry, and he says, "You ask whether your verses are good, you ask me that. You've asked others before. You send them to magazines, you compare them with other poems, and you worry when certain editors turn your efforts down. Now, since you've allowed me to offer you advice, let me ask you to give up all that. You are looking to the outside, and that above all you should not be doing now. Nobody can advise you and help you, nobody. There is only one way. Go into yourself, examine the reason that bids you to write, Check whether it reaches its roots into the deepest region of your heart. Admit to yourself whether you would die if it should be denied you to write. This above all, ask yourself in your night's quietest hour, must I write? And if it should be affirmative, if it's given to you to respond to this serious question with a loud and simple I must, then construct your life according to this necessity. Your life, right into its most inconsequential and slightest hour, must become a sign and witness of this urge. I feel like in the last few years, I've kind of taken that idea to heart subconsciously before I read this, because I've always known how much I want to make art, and I've been taking small actions to try and make more time for it. But in periods when I haven't had as much time to make as much as I want, I've also realized that I have really been building my whole life here around creativity. Art is something that I've always wanted to do and something I never questioned before, but life can definitely get in the way, and sometimes it's felt like there's never quite enough time to do everything. This was really true once I went into a job that wasn't creative at all. And I think I really relate to what he said about constructing your life around the idea of necessity. When I look around my space now and see how much I'm prioritizing creativity, the main thing I've realized is that I need to act on my ideas to create as soon as possible, and that means making time as well. The main thing is to start before you can doubt anything. Just start making something, even if it's only a small step at first. I've mentioned before that I like to keep a small drawing on the table, and this week I'm continuing the spring theme. Even if I only have 5 minutes in 1 week to draw, I just try to add to it whenever I can, and eventually these small actions build up into something a lot bigger. But alongside the smaller, quick drawings, the next way I've been romanticizing my art is by setting out to create a masterpiece. I don't mean trying to make something that's so good that it will be praised or go into a gallery, but instead, I love the idea of having a centerpiece in the art studio that feels ambitious and challenging, and most importantly, is just for yourself. I see this piece as something that I will absolutely pour myself into over a long period of time and always want to keep. I think this idea has come up because most of the art that I've made has been given away. I really loved working on commission drawings for other people over the last 10 years, but it's also meant that I don't really own many of the things that I've drawn. And at the same time, oil painting is completely new for me this year. This will be the first realistic oil painting that I ever try to do, and the first portrait that I ever paint, so I'm treating it like one of the most important things in my life right now. It's also of one of my favorite memories, so I've completely romanticized the idea of recreating it. So I've been able to spend around 4 afternoons on my painting now, and I'm really liking how it's turning out. Yesterday I decided to just focus on one section, which was the portrait of Jace, and it actually took around 5 hours to get some of the details right. Everything is so small and I was working really up close, but I found that it was easiest to use the very tip of an angled brush in some of the smaller sections, especially the shadows around his eyes. And I also got to experiment a lot with how to use light and shadow in this piece with oils. I found that I could put the shadow down first and then take a clean brush and wipe away some areas to bring out the highlights. But I was looking at it so closely and paying so much attention to all of these details that it was actually really nice to step back at the end of the night and see that I had actually managed to capture his expression in that moment, which is really the only thing that I wanted to do with this artwork. It's also of one of my favorite places and experiences, so now that I can see where it's going, I'm really excited by the idea that I might actually be able to recreate that memory. And because I spent so much time looking at it, I also spent a bit of time thinking about what exactly made it feel so romantic and important. And I definitely don't want to say that romantic love is the best or most unique form of love. It's definitely just one type of expression. But at the same time, I feel like it is such an uplifting part of my life. And I've been really lucky to have very sweet and sentimental versions of it while I was growing up. Even recently, we found a letter while we were cleaning out my grandpa's house, and it was from my great-grandfather to my great-grandmother. He addressed it to her and said, "With a love far less than you deserve." And we actually noticed my grandpa's handwriting on the envelope as well, because he'd written in brackets that his parents were always in love. I'm just getting ready to go out for the day, and I'll be meeting up with some friends, and then I have a photo shoot this afternoon. It's for a couple that wants to retrace their first dates, which I thought was such a cute and romantic idea. And I said I'd just mention the camera gear that I'm taking, but it's really just one camera. This is the Sony a7 IV, which we use for filming and photographing everything. But because we're going to be inside and outside, I'm going to take two different lenses. So the first one is this 35mm lens, which is really good in low light. I'll probably use it in places like a bakery we're visiting if we shoot inside. And it's also really good for creating a kind of dreamy effect because it helps to blur out the background. The second lens I'm taking is on this camera at the moment, and it's a 24 to 105mm lens, and I'll probably use this for everything that we take outside. It's also the main lens that Jason and I would use for all of our filming and travel photography as well. I don't have a strict shot list or anything, but I always know the kind of mood that I want to create before a shoot. And because the idea is to go back to how they first met, I'd really like to see if we can capture that feeling of young love. I love the idea of capturing first dates in a photo shoot because it really goes back to those early days before you know how something is going to go. Jason and I actually started dating when we were quite young as well, at the very end of high school, and a few months ago I found the movie ticket from our first date. We haven't recreated our first date in photos, but we did have the chance to photograph a wedding in a cinema, and I really loved how the photos came out. Before the photo shoot today, I also met up with old and new friends. They live in Japan, so we hadn't hung out in a while, but it was so nice to chat about their creative projects in fashion photography and travel writing. I'm going through everything from the shoot yesterday, and I'd love to show you some of the photos. We basically met up in Surrey Hills and started walking around all of the streets. It was actually the same route that this couple used to follow on some of their first dates. So I really just wanted to capture that feeling of being really young and carefree, just running around the city. This first photo was something that I really wanted to take with that idea. I put the camera on a really low shutter speed to try and get a lot of movement, but I guess the hard thing is that you don't want too much movement and you still need part of the photo to be in focus. So I just got them to run past the camera together a few times while I tested these settings, and I also changed a lot of this while editing because the original photo was completely off balance while we were running around, but I do love how the final shots here came out. The next photos were taken at the bakery that they used to go to for their very first dates, and it was really cute because they actually ordered the same things that they used to get when they were younger. So I tried a few different angles here. We have some photos inside, some through the window, and others on the table outside. And I really just wanted them to hang out like they naturally would, which I think they did pretty effortlessly. I didn't actually give too many directions on this shoot, but sometimes it does help to suggest a small movement or an action, just so people don't feel too still or awkward in front of the camera. But I'd say that most of this wasn't very posed because they were really relaxed and I could just take the photos around them. After the bakery, we also went to a park that they used to hang out in, and I wanted to try putting the sky behind them in some of these photos, so I just asked them to get close together, and I think they did a really great job of playing into that kind of excited or maybe even slightly naive feeling that you really only get when you first meet someone. They were also selling their first car, so we decided to take some photos with it on the day. And there was a really messy puddle here, but after I found the right angle, I really liked how they started to turn out. So I'll be editing this gallery in the next few days, but I thought it was such a cute photo shoot idea and such a nice way to revisit their memories. I'm actually going to be photographing their tea ceremony and wedding in a few months too. The creative processes behind art and photography are kind of similar. They have a lot of intense focused time with a lot of hours going into making each artwork or editing each gallery. I love to make the space feel really cozy for editing days with tea and incense or candles. This week I'm actually testing out some candles for my own homewares brand too. I really enjoy this time and how quiet it is, and I honestly don't procrastinate at all. I usually get so absorbed in the whole process of editing that I end up losing track of time altogether. But having the new record player has actually helped me to take breaks because I need to flip it every few songs. I can easily spend a lot of time here on everything I want to make, but it's also been so nice to share the space recently. I love having friends over for day-to-day life without any real plans. We'll go to Pilates, make acai bowls and lunch, and spend the afternoon painting together. This week, my friend started painting a mountain that she loved visiting in Spain, and she told me that she felt very inspired to get more in touch with her creative side here. The weather also completely changed, so it was nice to stay cozy and inside. I had another photo shoot for a family this week, and it ended up raining really suddenly, so we couldn't go outside like they originally planned. But I think it ended up working out for the best because instead we spent the afternoon at their house. They really wanted to take photos with their grandparents, and I ended up kind of capturing daily life around their home. My favorite photos were definitely these ones where everyone's playing mahjong, and I actually think it feels much more special to capture photos like this instead of the group photos that we might have taken somewhere outside. I think it's pretty rare to have everyday moments documented like this, and it's such a good excuse to romanticize something that's so casual but actually so important. And when I was leaving, we were talking a bit about photography, and they said it must be nice that my job that day was basically just to give people their memories in photos. I didn't start photography until a few years ago, and I really only started taking portraits like this last year. But it has been great so far because it's true that I'm really just there documenting things as they unfold, and I love giving people something that they can always look back on. Our own apartment is completely filled with photos we've taken. We try to make an album at the end of every year and keep it on the coffee table. I think that seeing everything together really makes me appreciate how many moments can fill a life, and I'm always inspired to make art from that idea for other people, and even if it's just for my own memories. I feel like one way we've really romanticized life together is just by prioritizing it, trying to experience and appreciate as much of life as we can. We got a new table for the record player, and I'm so excited to put together this corner of the apartment just for music. This is what it looks like at sunset at the moment. If you've watched this, thank you so much for spending time here. It would be great if you could subscribe to this channel for more art, but in the meantime, I hope it's just been a really nice place to unwind.